Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm here at Omeka, Associated Dev, mentor at start.ng. Today, we are going to be talking about constraints. Constraints are a part of design, but many people have issue with constraints because as constraints, as the image you are seeing on your screen, constraints hold you. They don't allow you to move. So they set a restriction, and that's what we'll be dealing on today. Now, what is a constraint? Simply put, constraint is a limitation or a restriction. That means they set a boundaries for you. Then there are also conditions that are used that are needed for the project to happen. That means you can't just be on a wild goose chase, especially in design. You have to narrow your search, narrow your research, narrow anything that you're doing in a box constraint. What are design constraints? Although we are going to, for us to understand what design constraints are, these are a set of conditions that are needed to happen for a project to be successfully completed. That means these are boundaries in which we set for ourselves in designs for a particular project to be successfully completed, not actually completed, but to be successfully completed. Now, we have common constraints that we have across board. When you're designing, you are considering the customers, considering the clients, considering the government regulations on a particular design. It may be a structure, maybe a bridge, maybe a road, maybe something as little as designing a, a plastic bottle. Those are constraints. They are constraints guiding those things. The constraints may also be hardware. What kind of hardware are you going to implement those? It may be software, it may be data, it may be operational procedures, it may be interface, it may even be the cost, the budget. Those are the constraints, common constraints that we have. For example, if you're talking about hardware and software constraints, if you look some designs, let's say you're designing a software for a Nokia, like you can see on the screen, Nokia, old Nokia. Uh, the considerations that you'll be putting into place will be the designs that we'll be doing. You have in mind that this particular device cannot be touched. So you must put into consideration that when designing. But in a touch screen, it's quite different. You can touch the faces, so the buttons will have to be a particular size. The interactions will have to be a particular way for you to have maximum user experience. So you can't design the same for a touchpad and a touch screen. Now we also coming into, and that one is for the hardware part. Coming into the software part, you can't design the same way you design for iOS. You can't pick the same design for Android. So they have different constraints guiding them. They have different things that you have to do for different. Same applies to Apple and Windows. So design constraints can have significant impact on design, and design constraints should be validated prior to imposing them on the solution. Now, you can't just rush into solving a problem. You have to consider the constraints. You have to consider different things that are available right now for that particular solution that you are providing. You can't just come on top of your head. Yes, we are creative people, but you can't just come out from nowhere and get your designs and design whatever you want without checking the constraints. So you are bounded by a limit, even though we are creative. According to TopTal, right, as designers, one of the most important tasks is to shape your client's product around a simple yet captivating idea. Then we turn that idea into useful information for the benefit of others. So what it means is that when a client brings a product, they have in their mind what the product should be. They have in their mind how they want it to be. Now, our work is to build that product with constraints, around those constraints. And when we see that we build that, we can now channel it to our users, which are the key people that will use it. But if we ignore our clients' constraints, maybe budget, maybe their ideas, we will see that the project may not go well as we think. Now, there's an example, the man that invented the vegetable peeler. Uh, he invented this in around 1988. I've forgotten his name. I'll drop the name in the link. Um, he invented it because his wife had arthritis and couldn't use the regular kitchen pail that they had. So he had to think of how can I solve this? But he solved it with a constraint in mind. He had people that had arthritis and had weaker handling ability. So he had a constraint in his mind. The constraint was people with disabilities. But to tell you the truth, that particular design won so many design awards, and it was built into it was a groundbreaking design, and it sold worldwide. So what is that showing us? Showing us that constraints actually there's ability, there's power in constraints. So which takes us to the next slide. There is power in strict limitations. Yes. Even though we are to expand our creative ability or capabilities, we still have to create boundaries around them. So these boundaries can help us when we are thinking about our product, when we are at any point in time in the design process, we have to think about the boundaries that we set, so that these boundaries will help us to push. And we are not trying to break the boundaries or in the future, when the boundaries are expanded, our creative abilities can also be expanded to reach them. So there are some apps that have their constraints, and these constraints have helped them to grow and to expand their worth in recent times. For example, let's take some of those apps. Snapchat. What are the constraints of Snapchat? When Snapchat came with the secrecy idea. Now, Snapchat came with the idea that they limit their customers, their users, to the amount of time they can access a particular content. It was 15 seconds earlier, and within that 15 seconds, your story goes. So it made people, especially teenagers, to feel comfortable to share their deepest thoughts and to share whatever they are feeling without someone holding it against them, living in digital print. So it's cleared from the Snapchat server. So they had that constraint in mind. Time. They set a very short time, and people grew to trust the brand. So that's actually what constraint does. Constraint sets your users to a particular audience. It doesn't give you everybody. It doesn't give you everything that you want, but it gives you a particular thing. And if you target that particular thing and do it according to your constraint and maintain it over time, your users come to trust your brand. So also, let's take Raise as another example. Raise, if we are familiar with Raise is a marketplace where people come and they actually built the marketplace, and it was a simple one. They had to set a constraint. Their constraints focused on simple yet widely used products that other people were afraid to use. They used a customer service. So if you had issues, you bring your customer service to them and they will fix it for you. Also, Bumble. Bumble is quite it's like a dating site like Tinder, but they made a constraint. The constraint was that when when a guy chats up a lady, the lady has a guy cannot chat up a lady without the lady initiating the conversation. So that means any lady on the platform have to initiate the conversation first on anyone that he or she likes. So this broke some norms, which the norm of a guy going up to a lady and asking for a relationship. So it makes the lady feel comfortable, and also makes the guy feel less awkward meeting up with a lady. So that means it gives specific people, a group of users, the abilities that other users don't have. And people trusted in that ability. So they also, for Instagram had limitation on their device and the location in which you can push a particular content and from what device you can push a particular content. So when Instagram came, they had a limitation, a constraint that you can only upload images of a particular size from a particular device. So you can't do it on a mobile, on a web, but only on a mobile app. So although recently they have expanded it, but still it's limited to a mobile app. So these are actually constraints that set a pace and define their users, and it made them to grow very fast. So constraints are very important. But the question is, what if our client doesn't understand that their app have to have constraints to scale? What are we to do? In fact, for us to achieve, uh, for us to achieve greatness, we have to constrain our app. But for our app, simplicity doesn't, for us to achieve our work of being simple, we have to show our clients really what simplicity means. It's not only about saying it it's not easy saying it just by, we want our app to be simple. We want your app to be simple. To have no, we have to show it, to have detailed plan of the implementation and how it works in real world, and how being simple can generate revenue for the client, because the client only wants to hear about how he or she will make money, and also how it will also achieve the set goals, alleviate the pains in which the clients want to solve. So we also, it's difficult to tell a client that he or she or her idea lacks direction, but we as creatives will also find a way to make the client to understand that. In fact, Leonardo da Vinci once said that simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. So before we set any constraints, before we do any design, we have to set constraints. And before setting those constraints, we have to answer some questions. Who am I designing for? Now, we can't design for everybody. So you have to answer this question. Who are you designing for? What group of people are you designing for? Not that you can't design for everybody, doesn't mean that everybody can use your app or your solution or anything you are designing, but you design with a specific people in mind. What is the hardware like? Are you designing on Android? Are you designing on iOS? Are you designing on a touch screen for a touch screen? Are you designing for a button phone? Are you designing for whatever you design? Are you designing for the old? Are you designing for the young? There are constraints. Okay, that's for the hardware. The hardware is the what software are you running on? I've talked about that. What is the budget of the company or the client? Yes, this is a very huge constraint. Are you trying to scale on this? Are you trying to limit? What are the limitations? So with these constraints set, how will future evolution of the project look like? So the project is going to change in the future. Yes, any project that you are building will not remain the same. So what are you going to do? How are you going to set this constraint so that tomorrow when we are about to expand, it will still have that boundary with it, but it will still evolve. Just like I talked about earlier about Instagram. Instagram has that constraint still of mobile, but they have actually evolved into allowing you to not to set a particular, they've removed that particular restriction on the size of your picture. but this you can also add images from your mobile. Constraints. Finally, constraints is very important. Thank you.